Connor is back. Mitch watched Nebraska football practice on Saturday. We have thoughts on Dylan Raiola, all of that and more next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus. That's daily. Yes, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right. Welcome to a Monday show. I'm Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone in Omaha and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Both of us now of fatherhood. So I'm very seasoned in experience as my child was born last Thursday night. So I could tell you everything you need to know. Ask me questions, whatever. You could send those in. But yeah, we were happy to bring little Sophie into the world on Thursday night. We can talk about it more if Mitch has any questions later on in the show. We also brought young Dylan Raiola into the world. This, I don't. That wasn't very good. Anyway, Dylan Raiola is going to be a topic here on the show today, so we could plaster that up on the marquee up front because I know that's what people want to hear about. I was not able to attend for obvious reasons the Saturday night open practice, Mitch, but it seemed to me in reading people's coverage, and including yours on The Athletic, that everyone's takeaway here was, oh yeah, it turns out every box is being checked here with Nebraska's 5-star freshman quarterback.
Yeah, first of all, heartfelt congratulations from everybody to you and your wife, and awesome to see the photo from Friday of your baby Sophie, and can't wait to hear more about it. So
yeah.
But yes, Dylan Raiola stole the show yet again at an event that was open to the fans. This was like spring game redone, except it wasn't a game. It was just a practice. We're just talking about practice here. We heard a lot of that. That was Haven Fields, Nebraska's new football administrator, was tweeting was quoting Allen Iverson in his tweets from Memorial Stadium on Saturday night or Sunday when he posted that. You know, there were 3,500 people in attendance at the stadium on Saturday night. It was a hot night. We're early in August. People are still, out and about on their summer vacations, getting ready to go back to school. I was a little surprised that it wasn't like closer to 6, 8, 10,000. Some of it may have been just that people didn't really know this was going on. They did open ticket sales back up on Saturday, the day of the event, after closing it down 24 hours before. But, the Nebraska administrators and coaches were happy with the turnout. It looked like a good number of people there in the lower bowl of the West stands. And I think they're going to do this again, and they'll probably expect to double that number, if not more. Nebraska is the kind of place where, you could see 10,000 people want to show up to watch a practice. I know NFL teams do this, more in a scrimmage environment, or they'll practice with another team. Matt Rule made mention that the Philadelphia Eagles, I would want to maybe double check this number, but he said they got 50,000 here in recent days for a practice.
They had a lot. Open. I saw some video. They had
That's
a lot
crazy.
Of people.
Yeah.
But teams do that. They sell tickets to night training camp practices and stuff like that, and people can go out and get autographs and have a good time. Make it a bigger event. Make it a little bit more. But I would not be surprised at all if Nebraska at some point, push that thing over 10,000. That seems easy to me.
Nebraska, Alabama, Ohio State are the leaders in this in this new way of thinking to raise money for the collective. The Huskers probably raised about $90,000 for 1890 initiative. So like maybe a kicker for one semester or something like that. But
hey,
anyway,
it's something. It's something.
It'll pay for like 2 weeks of Dylan Raiola. And I'm not joking, but
I know.
Anyway, he was the show again, and we saw Dylan when the doors opened and the team came out of the tunnel. He was there at the center with his green jersey, very easy to notice among the reds and whites. And, your freshman quarterback is leading the team onto the field. And it doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't feel like, why is there a freshman at the front? He is the guy. And I think everybody who was there, whether you're in the locker room or you're in the stands, you understand that Dylan is he's the show. And the Huskers came out with their number one offense to start the scrimmage. They were not in full pads. This was half pads, so you're not seeing, although there was some hitting, you're not seeing full real football. Dylan's out there leading the offense, and they scored a touchdown on the first drive against the Black Shirts.
Yeah, I think the thing that the boxes, because we knew this is a foregone conclusion. Like Nebraska, their starting quarterback is going to be Dylan Raiola. We knew that pretty much since the day he signed. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about, hey, there's going to be a competition and everything, and they'll go through it in camp, but Dylan Raiola is the best one, and it would be an absolute disservice to the team if he didn't play, especially considering the leadership that he's grabbed over this thing this summer. I love what you published today on The Athletic, just a quote from Dylan, who spoke, and more now you get the sense from him that he's been there before. He's done this before, even though he's a true freshman. He's going through it for the first time. He's got this kind of command, and he is in all the senses of the word quarterback, a quarterback. But he said, he's not afraid to ask teammates to step up a little bit, to get after guys. It said, going through the hard stuff, and now that I have their trust, it's like, okay, he's not getting on me just to get on me. If you correct the mistake and make it right, we're going to celebrate that because it's a big deal to us. Going through the hard stuff is an incredible quote, and I'm sure when Matt Rule sees that, he's like, wow, I cannot believe how many boxes this guy is checking, because I think that's exactly what he wants him to do. Like, he wants it. And that's why he hasn't made him the starter this summer. That's why he's not going to make him the starter for a couple more weeks. He wants it to be hard for him. And Raiola seems to have embraced that entire thing.
Yeah, Raiola's talking about the hard stuff there. He mentioned the mat drills, and he's going back to the winter. So invaluable for him to have been a part of this program from January, because he was able to do an off season before he got a season. And, that's more and more common today for true freshmen or transfers to come into the program and start in the off season. But if you're going to make someone the starting quarterback as a newcomer, you have to have done it with an off season in front of the team. And, he built up, as he said, trust and some equity with these guys. He was able to hang out with them away from the field. He was able to take the offensive line to pizza, as we talked about last week. He was able to take 5 of the receivers to Texas, as we talked about last week. And some of the receivers, we heard from Jamal Banks about that. So these are all steps that are leading up to the inevitable conclusion this month, which is Dylan is ready to go. And he looks like he's on track to be ready to go for August 31st. Now, I got some blowback this weekend on Twitter from some people who were like, hey, you were telling us this about Jeff Sims last year. What's different with Dylan? And it's like,
Classic.
well, you're watching two completely different guys. First of all, we didn't know Jeff Sims in the way that we know Dylan Raiola a year ago. We didn't know Jeff Sims a year ago in the way we know Dylan Raiola today. We've been watching Dylan, whether it's coming on visits or, in my case, going to Arizona and seeing him work out and meeting with him. Now here, a spring game, a full practice on Saturday night. We didn't know Jeff Sims like that. We didn't know necessarily what was going to happen when he went out there. And I don't think that we expected the same of Jeff Sims a year ago. Obviously, that was a bust. We didn't necessarily expect what we're expecting from Dylan now, for good reason, because there were more unknowns, even with the guy who had experience.
To be fair, like I certainly didn't think it would be as bad as it was last year, and I was portraying that before the season. But I love when people do this, because I can't wait to get back to work and do the show, because well, I'll have many segments about this. But like, you guys can read the quotes, you guys can look through the coverage that people are putting out there. I don't think anybody was trying to tell you that Jeff Sims was going to be, this guy who grabbed a hold of everything. We were wondering. I remember asking questions at media days last year to Sims and to others, like, hey, how's this leadership thing going? Like, who's grabbed the hold of it? And that question got left unanswered. And that wasn't anything that, I don't think that was a Sims individually his problem, but he did not grab it the same way that Dylan Raiola has. And then obviously the talent. We saw what he was at Georgia Tech. There was reason to believe that he could have that he could have corrected some of those things in the situation that Nebraska was putting him in. But we knew it was possible that he was just a guy who turned the ball over a lot. And it turned out to be where he turned the ball over like 4 times as much he did as he did in his the rest of his career. So like that stuff was out there, guys. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And so if we're not trying to nobody's trying to bamboozle you here. Like, we think everyone thinks the kid's good because they've told us he's good and the locker room says he's good. That's the story.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not worth rehashing anymore. Yeah. The Jeff Sims stuff. Dylan Raiola is off to a good start here in preseason camp. We saw solid evidence of that in a 2-hour workout on Saturday night at Memorial Stadium. And we'll just, we'll take that for what it's worth, which, is something. It's not everything. The true proof is going to come at the end of this month and into next month when he gets an opportunity to go out there and lead this team into football games. So, all right, after the break, we are going to talk about Nebraska's other quarterbacks and what else I saw on Saturday night at the open practice. Before that, please subscribe to us on all of the podcast listening platforms. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. Follow us on X at Locked On NEB. Email the show at lockedonneb@gmail.com. We'll be back after this break. All right, Mitch Sherman here for eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, available only to U.S. customers. All right, welcome back. It is Monday morning, the first full week of preseason practice at Nebraska. The Huskers are 4 practices in. Practice number 5 is today on Monday. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer is with me from Omaha's 1620 The Zone. Right now, Connor is on break from the radio show because he is welcoming in with his wife, brand new baby, Sophie. Connor, have you slept is my first question for you. And how's it going there at the home front?
So I have dad guilt because it's really, I mean, people ask about sleep and, hey, are you guys sleeping? Obviously it's less and it's more, bumpy than it was, me going to sleep at midnight and waking up at 7, pretty much every day in the lead up to this. So there's a few, wake ups in the middle of the night and you're kind of sitting around wondering what's going on. Why's this baby crying? But then you find out that mom's got it all figured out. So it's really mom who's sleep deprived. So I maybe we could get her in or, have her on as a guest sometime. How's your sleep?
Because she's the one who really should be answering that question. Yes,
exactly. I feel bad answering the question, but no, it's been really good. And people have been really nice. I had a whole bunch of people reaching out and, wondering how it's gone and everything. So that's greatly appreciated. So thank you all, listeners to this show, even, sending me messages and whatever it might be.
Well, I'm glad she made it for the start of football season. So you'll be able to enjoy a football season with your daughter, her first one. She'll remember it well in the years ahead. And that you guys can start to move this thing down the road, and hey, by September when the games start, or August 31st, this is all going to be old hat to you. She'll be sitting in your lap or laying in your lap, watching Nebraska face UTEP, or maybe you'll be in the press box and she'll be home with mom watching on TV.
I will say this one more. Is it possible that in the first year of her life that the Royals make a playoff run? I don't know. We'll see. That will be a very memorable experience if we can get that going. And it won't be it's just for me because of the baby. It'd be for other reasons.
I mean, I hope there's like a Royals onesie in her like 0 to 3 wardrobe, so she's able to wear that during the pennant race.
She's got more clothes than me already, so yeah.
All right. Well, that's usually how it goes. So and get used to that, because it won't change. I've got a 17-year-old, and it's the same way, even more dramatic in that area, of course. So, all right, we're gonna get back into our discussion of Saturday night at Memorial Stadium. We talked about Dylan Raiola in the first segment because Dylan's the star of the show. He's the guy who came out with the number one offense, led that touchdown drive against the first team defense, hit Jamal Banks on the fade route in the end zone. The 3,500 fans were wowed. There was ups and downs from all of the quarterbacks. Dylan had a drive later in the practice that got off schedule, and he didn't get move the chains. So it's not going to be all perfect for him. I think that's a good thing to know going into this as we go further in this month. Nebraska's not going to all of a sudden go from scoring 18 points a game to 46 because it's got a solid freshman at quarterback. So of course Heinrich Harburg is out there. He was running the twos. They had Danny Kalen. He ran the third set of downs. The guy I want to go to next, though, in our discussion is Jalen Gramstad. So we talked about him this summer. I think it was warranted. He was the guy who came in at the post-grad camp and surprised everybody, the NAIA Player of the Year, who wanted to come to Nebraska to put an end to his career by playing or being a part of a team on the big stage. I don't know, Connor, if you had a chance to hear any of the comments about Gramstad. Heinrich Harburg talked about him. Glenn Thomas, the quarterback's coach, talked about him. Dylan Raiola talked about Gramstad, and we got to see him throw on Saturday night too. He's pretty good. He's got an arm. I'll say that. He dropped one in the bucket, maybe the prettiest throw of the whole night down the sideline on the east side, and we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with him this year, if he's going to play at all, but Nebraska has something in this kid.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible news for Nebraska's quarterback situation, because another guy you mentioned in Harburg, like, you have some fruit, and he's just, in his second week here, or really his first week of camp, and his first month of being here still in Gramstad. So you can only expect that that's going to be better. I think they probably want him to grab as much as he can before the season starts. And then it gives Nebraska the flexibility to move into some other things with Harburg, and then put Kalen on that track. And we'll talk about him a little bit as well, but it definitely changes the look of the quarterback room, not only his presence, which we've talked about before, but now that we've gotten to see it a little bit, and I saw some of the video and tried to take in as much of the practice as I could just online. It's amazing, by the way. I felt like I got every angle just by reading everyone's coverage. So thank you to the Nebraska media and people who were at the practice as well. And the main takeaway one was like, hey, this Dylan Raiola kid's okay. And the second one was like, hey, this this new guy Gramstad, kind of interesting. I wonder what they could do with him. So that's incredible news. It's just a practice, and it's just one kind of spotlight period. But if he's checking boxes, then he's checking boxes. It's huge.
Nebraska's administration did remind the fans, or it was more DJ Wayne did remind the fans, no pictures or videos from this event. This is just for us here at Memorial Stadium. It's like, yeah, I mean, okay, you try telling 4,000 people to put their phones. So this isn't the Masters here. We're not going to be able to get people to to keep their phones inside. And I saw some videos and photos that were taken from the west side too, where the fans were sitting, and that's fine. And that's the reality of it if you're going to have fans into practice. So Gramstad wants to be a coach, according to Glenn Thomas, Nebraska's quarterback's coach. Thomas actually said that Gramstad reminds him a little bit of Garrett McGuire, who was a walk-on quarterback at Baylor when Thomas and Matt Rule were there from 2017 to 2019. I'm not sure if Thomas was there the whole time, but he was there for part of that time and did work with Garrett McGuire. Garrett, of course, is now the young wide receivers coach at Nebraska, who has a bright future ahead of him. So another intriguing element of the Jalen Gramstad story too, in just how he can help these quarterbacks through things, with the knowledge now that he wants to coach himself someday.
Yeah. And then Harburg, I don't think his story changes from what we've talked about all summer long with him. It's interesting. I've always been interested, Mitch, in his approach, like he was a starting quarterback and he won a bunch of games for Nebraska last year and made some chicken salad out of some chicken crap and did a really good job, and the fan base liked him. And, he's been dethroned before any sort of due process at all. Everyone's like, yeah, sorry, just he's not going to be the guy. But his approach is, I think, pretty healthy. He's a competitive guy, but he kind of sees maybe the writing on the wall here a little bit.
I think so. Yeah. And look, Matt Rule will continue to tell you that he thinks they're going to need 2 or 3 quarterbacks to win this season. And, he knows that there's going to be ups and downs. You don't want to say anything like you can't predict injuries, but they happen at the QB spot. And, I wouldn't say the ship has sailed on Heinrich Harburg's time as a Nebraska quarterback, just because if things go on schedule this month and everybody stays healthy, he's going to be wearing a headset at the start of the opener instead of taking snaps. That doesn't mean that he won't be an important piece for Nebraska. And I don't even necessarily mean an important piece coming in and playing another position. Maybe they decide to go down that road. Although I was standing on the field level with our friend Max Olson during the practice on Saturday night, and we were talking about Harburg and just what they were going to do with him. And the subject turned to, well, are they going to put him at tight end or receiver? Or, is he going to be in there as a decoy? And I mean, that sounds good in theory, and we've talked about that at various points here in the offseason, Connor. I don't know. Looking at Nebraska's lineup of talent at those positions now that they're in camp and you see the players, I don't know where I see Harburg coming in. Like last year in the opener, they used him as a tight end because they kind of needed something extra there. They really don't right now. I mean, Nebraska, you put Carter Nelson in this mix at wide receiver, and you got Janiron Bonner out there running with the ones, and Jalen Lloyd was on the sideline on Saturday night nursing some tightness, but he's going to be a piece of this thing. We've talked about Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor is a specimen, and Fedoni looks great, and you have Nate Borkercher, running across the middle and catching passes. Like I don't know where Harburg would necessarily fit in, other than just like, hey, he can come in and take a rep on the outside and surprise a defense, catch him off guard.
I'll say this. I'd be surprised if they didn't use him in some, I don't even know if it's an unorthodox way, but get him on the field somehow. I think they appreciate his athleticism and what he can do. But as far as a full on position change, he's going to go play tight end, no, I think he'll do whatever he can to help Nebraska's offense from the quarterback room, and he'll be in there. And if they could mix him in different ways, wildcat run. I think they like the added option threat that he gave him last year. So why not pull that out for a drive or a few plays or something like that. So I think that's kind of where we're headed with Heinrich Harburg. Let's take a final break here, Mitch. We'll come back. We'll get to the final notes and nuggets from the open practice and plenty more when we return here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. But a quick reminder here, and thank you first for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football, expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is what it's called. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we are still in the doldrums of summer. And yes, we are with the sports podcast, and we love sports. We love them so much that we don't want them to slow down. And even when the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, FanDuel lets us keep them going. All we have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime we're in the mood. So take a look at the Olympics or NBA Summer League, whatever it might be. Major League Baseball still going on every day.
Preseason NFL.
Preseason NFL, if you're a true sicko. Right now, new customers get $150 of bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook. $150 that you could bank and use, and get a little creative wherever you'd like during the doldrums of the summer. FanDuel.com/locked on is where you head to get that $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Make every playoff shot count. Make every preseason shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, some other things that were notes from Nebraska's open practice. So obviously, I think, I can recall walking into first practices in the fall over the years. The first thing that I always do is I just get a general sense. Okay, who looks better? Who looks like they've gained a bunch of weight? Who's a freshman who looks like a player? Like you're just kind of scanning to see if anything stands out to you. And Carter Nelson seems like he probably checked that box. And Vincent Shavers seems like he kind of checked that box as well. We knew that Ja'Cory Barney was probably going to be in that mix. Mitch, is there anybody else who jumped out to you just from a body type, like, hey, this guy could maybe do some things?
Yeah, so I kept looking down at my roster and, you're double checking, trying to figure out who players are. And there was a freshman on the defensive line that jumped out to me. You remember Keona Wilhite, who was a Washington commit, and then Washington had the coaching change when Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama, and he was back on the market from Tucson, Arizona. Nebraska got in on this kid, and it was one of those just like late commitments, late ads. I believe it was well after the December signing period. Like we were in January, he signed in February.
Yes.
And then you kind of forget about it. Well, he's now Keona Davis. So I don't know, going by a different part of the family name there. And dude is big and athletic and looks like somebody who's going to come off the edge, maybe early in his career, and cause some problems. Now, can he play? We'll find out. It's not like he was running with the ones, but from like a past the eye test kind of discussion, really, really impressed. He was listed when he signed as a recruit at like 6'4", 240 or 245. And usually those are inflated, like with the recruiting sites. Nebraska's got him at 6'5". I believe he's 250 or 255. So he's apparently still growing. And it's like the weight that he's adding is good weight. So I was intrigued for sure by Keona Davis and look forward to asking the defensive coaches. I think we're going to hear from Terrence Knighton at some point very soon. There's media availability Tuesday and Friday this week, and we'll hear from Rule on Saturday. So I want to know about this kid and what they've seen from him early in camp. Not to get too excited yet, but down the road, yes. Also, the big German David Hufkin was there, and he's every bit of 6'7", 255, which is what the roster lists him at. So he's a specimen. We kind of knew that because we saw video and photos of him from the Texas satellite camps earlier this summer when Nebraska discovered him. But those are a couple that stood out to me.
We'll hear from Mr. Pot Roast and Coach Butler tomorrow after practice.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to want to ask Terrence about Keona Davis.
So then the other thing that I think that I would look at, walking into a first day of practice is, when it gets to a team period and when people start trotting out, just make a, this is not set in stone. Just make a mental note or, pencil in, okay, who are they trotting out there? What's the first group here?
Mm-hmm.
And the offensive line, I think, presented an interesting one with
Mm-hmm.
Turner Corcoran's, being that first left tackle that trotted out there. Any thoughts on kind of how they did that, and then there were some injury situations too that we could talk about as well.
Yeah, so Turner Corcoran with the ones at left tackle, I raised my eyebrows. He has been a starting left tackle at Nebraska for much of his career, but was hurt in the second half of last season, and Teddy Prohaska went back into that role that he had as a true freshman in 2021, and which would ended up being a redshirt year for Teddy. But Turner did go down with what looked like a minor injury late in practice, and Teddy came in and played left tackle. Then Turner was clearly pretty frustrated with that situation. He wants to be healthy and has worked hard to get healthy. But Donovan Raiola did talk some about Turner Corcoran and what a great teammate he is, and said that those two are going at it. So there's a battle there for left tackle that maybe we didn't envision. We listed Teddy Prohaska as one of our most important players because we said when he's not out there, it destabilizes the offensive line. Well, maybe there's a competition. There's definitely some kind of a competition going on at left tackle. You had Micah Mazuka and Justin Evans at guard, of course, Ben Scott at center, and Bryce Benhart at right tackle. That was the number one offensive line. As Henry Lutovsky deals with a calf injury that's going to keep him out for a couple of weeks. So you may end up with Mazuka in the lineup right away in the season opener. We'll see about that as we get farther into August.
Yeah, we'll have to get more on that because those are two really interesting developments. Mazuka was the guy who came in right away, and Rule was like, "Hey, he's got some work to do," and we're like, "Ooh, that doesn't sound great." And then obviously, you just mentioned the situation with Prohaska and Corcoran, and people kind of just penciled Teddy in there. So we'll see what that is about. Is it more of the top guy maybe not grabbing it, or is it more of the second guy coming in and really taking a hold? So we'll try and investigate that as we go on throughout fall camp. Injury situations. Tristan Alvano did not practice in the open practice, and he'll be missing a couple weeks here. That situation is still the same, and it was all it's up in the air anyway with the kicking situation. Lutovsky's hurt. Any other thing? There was a unfortunate injury during practice as well. Mitch. So
Roger Gradney, the true freshman, DB/linebacker. They list him at a linebacker. He was recruited as a DB, so he's added some size. It was the first commitment for Nebraska in this 24 class out of Texas. He had to be carted off, so we'll see. You hope that it's not as serious as it looked like it might have been when they were taking him off in practice, and that just stinks to see that. First time, and I'm not going to say it's because of the turf, but of course Nebraska practices on the grass, every day when there's not an event in the stadium, and they go out for something like we saw Saturday night. So that's more in Matt Rule's bid to get grass in the stadium. Anytime you see an injury like that, it's like, yeah, this is why he wants grass. Not to say that the turf was the fault of that, but Jalen Lloyd, Prince Will, they were both held out on Saturday night. They were going to hold out. They held out Tommy Hill and kind of a load management thing. Obviously, he's extremely important, and we talked about that last week too in the most important players. So nothing major there at all with those guys. Lutovsky up until Saturday night. Before Saturday night was the most notable injury that happened in the first three workouts.
All right, that will do it for us. We'll have plenty as fall camp goes on. We'll continue to talk about more storylines every day this week. Appreciate you listening to us, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending college conference realignment, Spencer McLaughlin's got you covered. You can find the link to the Locked On College Football podcast in the description, so you don't need to search it right here in this YouTube video. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.